is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis coming to you with a quick video. I wanted to let you guys know I got some new merchandise available, not just t-shirt anymore. I got different type of t-shirt, different type of shirts and logos that you can purchase on my spread shirt, and also hoodies now. We have expanded and added more to the channel and more merchandise for the brand. Thanks for supporting. It will be in the description and the links will be in the comment section below. Thanks for helping me and supporting the movement. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm going to check out the video. What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis coming to y'all with a quick video. I usually don't talk about rumors. As you guys know, I don't really follow the rumors. I don't really talk about the hottest things unless it's a trade or a free agent signing. But this is one of the deals that is obvious, as you can see by the title. Jimmy Butler going to the Rockets. I just wanted to add my 2 cents on this trade and basically tell you if this is what they should do or they shouldn't. Now, I was on record um, telling you guys that I'm a big Daryl Morey person. He has been able to reconstruct his roster. Remember, they was in a place where they was rebuilding. They tried to be a borderline good team, and then they had enough assets to attract OKC to give them James Harden. They was without a superstar. They was trying to get another superstar after they lost Tracy McGrady and Yao Ming. And when the opportunity came, they had enough pieces to make that trade. And James Harden was a person they took a chance and a risk on. They believed that he could be a superstar. They believed that he can be the player. And when he became available, they jumped on it quick. They gave away some decent assets to get him, but they still had enough of a core, enough of a nucleus to still make the playoffs. But after that, they signed and traded for people like KJ McDaniels, Chris Paul, Clint Capella was a guy that they drafted, and then obviously Trevor Ariza and PJ Tucker. These are guys that's two-way players. These are 3-and-D guys. These are people that can, even Patrick Beverly, they was able to get him. So I feel like Daryl Morey was trying to do his best to get defenders, not just offensive players, not just great scorers. He tried his best to get defenders. And most of them was two-way players that he was able to get for the last 5 years. And then obviously he was able to build around James Harden. Now, the problem has been winning a championship with James Harden as your best player. Obviously, this is something that we all see. James Harden been in the MVP conversation for the last 4 years, and he actually won it last year. And he's going to be in the conversation this year once they start getting back to winning. And remember, Chris Paul was suspended too, so they hasn't really been fully healthy, and they haven't really kept a roster together enough to really judge them. And it's only less than 5 games, and now it's about to be 5. Once they play today, it's going to be over. So at the end of the day, I like this team. I think they're going to be good. But like I said, Daryl Morey is never done. His goal is ultimately to win a championship in Houston as he is their GM. And he has got close. Obviously, they went to the Western Conference Finals with Dwight Howard, another two-way player at that time, the best center in the NBA at that time, was wanting to come to play with James Harden and win with him. And obviously, injuries stopped that from taking all the way off. But even a guy like Josh Smith was a guy that was a decent rim protector, not a great defender, but he was a two-way player, especially after he started getting that three ball when he got to Houston. So it's a trend of him trying to put two-way players alongside James Harden. And Jimmy Butler is one of the best that they can get. Obviously, if you look at what he's doing right now, Jimmy Butler is one of the top 10, top 15 players in the league. Right now, he's averaging 24 points, 3.8 steals, 1 block, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 42% from 3, 53% from the field, and that's within 5 games. And he did play teams like the Spurs in Toronto and Indiana and a decent Dallas team when he put up those numbers. And Jimmy Butler shot a high field goal percentage, over 45 last year, and he shot decent and respectable from 3. Now, I do understand that Jimmy Butler isn't a catch and shoot guy. He isn't a guy that just wants to wait in the corner and shoot threes. He's a guy that likes to bang in the post. He's a guy that likes to get to the basket. He's a guy that can create shots for you, whether it's passing or getting his own shot. And he's a tough cover because he's a big shooting guard, and he is tall enough to play the 3 because most threes are 6'8", 6'9", 6'10". He's 6'7". He's not a small shooting guard, and I can definitely see him playing the small forward position. And you got to put in the perspective that he is 6'8", 232, so he is a bigger player at that. So he's already at a size of a shooting guard. I mean, as a shooting guard and small forward, but he also is a bulky one. James Harden is 6'5", 220. Jimmy Butler is even bigger and wider than him, and he's a physical guy too. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Jimmy Butler is a two-way player, and that will give them elite um, talent with Chris Paul, Clint Capella, and James Harden. And you got to put in perspective too that they cannot sign him as a free agent because they don't have the money. They will literally have to gut their whole roster to be able to offer him the contract that he wants, instead of just trading some picks that they don't need anyway because they're trying to compete right now, and trading some players like Brandon Knight and Marquise Chris to try to eat up some of that salary so that way they can trade for him and then give him an extension since he's already on the roster, so that way they can keep Chris Paul, James Harden, and Clint Capella all on the team while still keeping PJ Tucker. Now, if they're able to do that, I don't care what nobody say. That's one of the best teams in the NBA. And this is why. Daryl Morey and a lot of teams like the Sixers and the Thunder, they did the wise thing. And I try to bring this up multiple times. Yes, they're going to have to give up their future, but that's fine because James Harden is under contract. Remember, Chris Paul and Clint Capella signed max contracts. And remember, they just gave a contract to PJ Tucker. So they main players, they main starters are already locked into long-term contracts. Not only that, you're not really worried about getting a draft pick because you are trying to win right now against the Warriors. He said he's obsessed with beating the Warriors. His goal is to beat the Warriors. And he was up 3-2 against the Warriors. And everybody said they took a step back. Most people still had the Rockets finishing second in the West, despite losing Bahamute, despite losing Trevor Ariza and some other pieces. And you got to give them credit. They still are going to be a contender. Obviously, they got off to a bad start right now, but we still got over 70 games to be played, and they can either hit or miss in these games. The NBA has got tougher in the West as the teams like the Suns, the Kings, and the Mavericks and teams like that have gotten better, and they have gotten more talent. But this is as real as it can get. If you can have a starting lineup of Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Chris Paul, um, and PJ Tucker, you would definitely do that in a heartbeat because that just basically puts you right there with the Warriors because we don't know how healthy and how good DeMarcus Cousins is going to be. Will he be dominant? Will he be that missing piece? Will he help put them over the top? Obviously, we think he will. That's why everybody's picking the Warriors to win the championship. But we really don't know until we see it. But you also got to put in perspective that they still have Carmelo Anthony on the bench. And even if they do give up Eric Gordon is only one piece. They still will have Anthony. They still have Gerald Green. They still will have Nene when he comes back. They still will have James Ennis probably too. That's still 8, 9 deep guys. And the main thing I want to make about that too is even if they trade a little bit more of their bench, remember it's called trade deadline. When you get to the trade deadline, guys, you can pick up more veterans for cheap. You can pick up more veterans to fill out the rest of the roster. So you might get rid of Eric Gordon. You might get rid of Brandon Knight. You might get rid of Marquise Chris. I done heard they try to trade the 4 picks with Brandon Knight and Marquise Chris. And if they do that, those 2 players are replaceable. Marquise Chris is not a key player to this roster, and neither is Brandon Knight because he hasn't even been playing for years. So if they get rid of those 2 players plus give up 4 picks, you don't really care about your future for the next 4 years because all your starters is signed throughout 4 years besides PJ Tucker. And on top of that, you got to put in perspective that it's easy for them to put this team together if they can just get rid of 4 picks and some players and fill the rest of the roster with trade deadline players, which is the buyouts. I can buy out a player and a veteran that I don't want. He can go to my team, and that's going to help them fill out the rest of the roster that they will be missing by trading for Jimmy Butler, and they'll just replace him just like they did last year with the Gerald Greens and other players of that nature to basically put them back talent-wise on level with anybody in the NBA. Now, if they make this trade for Jimmy Butler, I do think it turns them into a very tough opponent for Golden State to deal with. They already was tough last year, putting Golden State down 3-2. But having a guy that can actually guard Kevin Durant, can he stop Kevin Durant? No, because Kevin Durant is one of the best players of all time. So is Steph Curry, but he helps the switching. Now, if you put Chris Paul or James Harden in the switch, Jimmy Butler can come over. He can guard. You still have Clint Capella. So even if they run pick and roll, Clint Capella is a great switch defender. He's athletic. He's mobile, and he makes it tough on guards. And he can block their shots, whether they pulling up over him or getting to the paint trying to get a layup. He can contest those and make it tough because he's an athletic, long, lanky center. And then you already want to switch everything. And that was one thing that hurted the Warriors last year was that the Rockets could switch everything because of Tucker and Ariza. Now, adding Jimmy Butler, you add a better player than Trevor Ariza on that wing, a guy that can create his own shot by dribbling, by shooting threes, by making plays for other people. And on top of that, he can get you hard, dirty work defense. He's a better defender than Trevor Ariza, and he's a better offensive player than Trevor Ariza. The only thing you really losing is depth in this trade in your future. But like I said, that don't really matter at this point. And the fact that you can get a lot of veterans at the trade deadline means you can fill out the roster with players that's ready to win, players that know their role, and players that really want to compete for a championship and will really do anything to do it and get it. So you win either way it go. So I think Daryl Morey, like I told you guys, in free agency when he signed Chris Paul and Clint Capella, at the end of the day, Daryl Morey wasn't going to stop trying to make this team better because he is obsessed with winning the championship with this Houston organization. And he has been up there with Danny Ainge, Sam Presti, with flipping talent, getting good pieces, and finding ways to continue to improve this roster and even signing people to decent contracts and trading them for superstars like Chris Paul and obviously James Harden. And if he can flip some role players like Brandon Knight, Eric Gordon, or even Brandon Knight and Marquise Chris in 4 picks, which would probably be role players because they'd be later in the draft because the Rockets, the next 4 years will not be a bad team. Then you basically flipping a bunch of role players for a superstar player, a top 10 and top 15 player in Jimmy Butler. Plus, he's more dynamic and adds more playmakers and add more versatility to the starting lineup because now you have 3 guys on this team that can create their own shot in James Harden, Chris Paul, and Jimmy Butler. Plus, you get an ability to switch everything again because Jimmy Butler is a great defender along with Chris Paul and Clint Capella, and you still do have PJ Tucker to be playing that small ball 5 and that stretch small ball 4, and he can help you switch everything too with Capella, with Chris Paul, and with Jimmy Butler. So this team will be very tough to score on. They'd be a high-scoring team. Is he the perfect fit? No, but Mike D'Antoni can make anything really work as long as you can shoot. And Jimmy Butler shoots good enough to where he's a threat. He shoots good enough to shoot over 40%. And he's a guy that likes to work hard, play hard, and go out there and give it his all. James Harden wants to win, Chris Paul wants to win, and Daryl Morey wants to win. So they all on the same page. They all have the same mindset, and they all have one goal, and that's to win a championship. Jimmy Butler doesn't feel like he can win a championship with Minnesota because after they sign him to a contract, they got to build around Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins and Jimmy Butler. You're not going to win a championship right now with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. They're not great enough defensively. They're not a great defensive team. Yeah, they was decent. Yeah, they could have finished in the top 5 last year in the West. One point, there was the 3rd and the 4th seed, but nobody really thought they was a contender against the Warriors and the Rockets. And even if the Rockets lose 60, they won 65 games last year. Even if they win 10 less games that they did last year, they would still be at 55 wins. Even if they lost 12 more games, they would still be at 53 wins. Even if they lost 15 more games, they would still have a decent record and be in the playoffs. So this trade only helps them. This trade only makes them better. And like I said, they can always complete the rest of their roster by the trade deadline by getting veterans to fill out the rest of it. Like Gerald Green, like other players that they did, you can always sign on people that comes from overseas and become available. You can always find the people that's bought out and available. And there's a lot of good players still on the market after they come out of playing overseas that will be available for being picked up around that time. So keep all that stuff in mind. This trade only makes them better, and it only makes them better offensively and defensively, and they're going to be a tough team to beat. Now, the biggest question is, will they beat the Warriors? I think it all depends on matchups. They can do basically what the Warriors can do. The only problem is DeMarcus Cousins. We don't know the version of DeMarcus Cousins that they're going to get. I think that that's the biggest thing because I feel like DeMarcus Cousins is significantly better than Clint Capella, and obviously Draymond Green is a better PJ Tucker, and obviously Kevin Durant and Steph Curry is better than Chris Paul, and Jimmy Butler and James Harden is better than Clay, but they're not too far off from being just as good as the Warriors. But at the same time, the Warriors lack depth, and this team, even with this trade, will have some depth, and they might have more depth than the Warriors. So we'll have to see about that. But the Warriors bench is looking real good right now, and Steph and KD, they're playing at an all-time high at this point in the season. So they're going to be hungry. They look like they want to do anything they can do to win this title, and they look dominant offensively right now. So it ain't going to be a cakewalk. Making Jimmy Butler don't put them as the favorites, but it does put them close enough to be on the same level as Golden State if it works out. It looks good on paper, but we will still have to see how it is when we actually get to see them play against each other and see how the fit really works as they try to build this team up if the trade happens through the regular season. So they have the whole regular season to figure it out, to get it right before they get to the playoffs. And that's what they will really need to do, get this trade done now, so that way they can ease in Jimmy Butler and basically all get on the same page. So that way when they get to the playoffs, they got the chemistry. They know where everything's happening. They know everybody's strengths and weaknesses, and they know their offensive scheme and their defensive scheme, and that's why they should try to get this trade done as fast as they can, so that can be an advantage and not a disadvantage, because the Warriors been playing it together for years. The only piece they trying to acclimate is DeMarcus Cousins. Other than that, this is basically the same team for the last couple years, and the Rockets will be adding another big piece, and then they will have to figure it out, and then they'll have over 70 games to figure it out, which is enough before you go to the playoffs. So let me know if you think this is a bad trade. Do you think this is a good trade? Do you think they should do it? Do you think they shouldn't? Or do you think the Minnesota Wolves ain't getting enough? Or do you think that after they trade Jimmy Butler for these picks, they're going to basically fall out of the playoff picture? Which I feel like if they're not going to keep Jimmy Butler, they're not going to make the playoffs, but they will have a lot of pieces and a lot of assets to get another player or even move up in a draft, or even if they do trade them, they'll be at the bottom, which means they'll have another chance to get a lottery pick. Plus, they'll have even more swings at it if they do get the picks from Houston. So they have more swings to get a superstar and another great player because of the picks and because of the fact that they'd be a bad team. So it works out for everybody. Only problem is Minnesota going to go from a team that made the playoffs last year to a team that most likely won't. But it'll make Wiggins and Towns happy because they'll get more opportunities, they'll get more shots, and they can be the best players on the team again, but they won't be winning that much, and that will become frustrated. But with Andrew Wiggins and Towns all signed to long-term deals, it's not much they can do but ask for a trade. Other than that, the team don't have to trade them because they're going to be locked down for another 4 and 5 years regardless. So let me know what you guys think. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link in the description comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. Like on Facebook to show support. Also, check out my Spreadshirt. There you can find t-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, even accessories like water bottle, phone cases, and pillowcases. And also, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I love making these videos. You love watching them. That's why I continue to go. Quinn Wade Basketball Analysis. I'm done.